The career you want already exists inside a version of you that your current self would find unrecognizable. And that's the part nobody talks about when they say, manifest your dream job. The transition between where you are and where you want to be has a cost, and the cost is a version of yourself that has to stop existing. Chances are you've already felt the pull towards something new and talked yourself out of it, because the pull came packaged with a grief you couldn't name. Most people treat a career change like swapping outfits. Same person, different clothes, you update the resume, learn some new skills, maybe take a course on the weekends, and on paper, that sounds reasonable. Logical even, but there's a reason so many people do all the right steps and still end up frozen. They apply to 3 jobs, hear nothing, and quietly slide back into the old routine like the whole ambition was a fever dream. The skills were never the bottleneck. The bottleneck is that you're trying to carry your current identity into a life it was specifically designed to prevent. Think about what an identity actually does. It filters every belief you hold about who you are. I'm the reliable one. I'm not a risk taker. I'm not creative enough for that. Acts as a sorting mechanism. Opportunities that match the filter get through. Everything else gets dismissed before it even registers consciously. You scroll past the job listing. You laugh off the suggestion from a friend. You explain, very rationally, why now isn't the right time. The identity does this automatically, like a thermostat holding the room at a temperature you set years ago and forgot about. So when someone says they want to manifest a new career, what they're actually describing is a request to live at a different temperature. And the thermostat has opinions about that. Here's where it gets uncomfortable. The identity you built around your current career isn't just a job title. It's a web of relationships, habits, daily rhythms, and self-concepts that reinforce each other constantly. Your morning commute, the way your family describes what you do, the colleagues who know you as a specific kind of person. The financial structure you've built assumes you'll keep earning in a particular range. Even your posture changes depending on whether you're in work mode or not. All of this is architecture, and architecture resists demolition. Researchers studying major life transitions have a term for what happens when someone attempts to cross from one stable identity to another. They call it a liminal period. The word comes from the Latin for threshold. You're standing in the doorway belonging fully to neither room. Anthropologists first documented it in tribal rites of passage, where young men were separated from the village, stripped of their previous status, and forced to exist in an in-between state before being reintegrated as adults. The old identity was ritually killed. The new one hadn't arrived yet. That gap, that nowhere space, is where the transformation actually happened. Career transitions work on the same principle, minus the ritual, and the absence of ritual is precisely why most people get stuck. In a tribal context, the community acknowledges the death. There's a ceremony. Everyone understands that the person who enters the forest is supposed to come out different. In modern life, you're expected to make the leap while still paying rent, answering emails from your current boss, and explaining to your parents why you're throwing away a perfectly good career. There's no ceremony. There's no acknowledgement. There's just you alone with a spreadsheet and a growing sense of dread at 2 a.m. The dread is the point. That feeling, the one that sits in your chest like a stone when you think about actually quitting, actually committing, actually telling people, is the old identity recognizing its own death. And it will fight. It fights with logic, with risk assessments, with carefully constructed worst-case scenarios that feel like wisdom but function as chains. What if it doesn't work out feels like a responsible question. It's a survival mechanism. The current identity treats change the way an immune system treats a virus. Detect, isolate, destroy. So what does an actual identity death look like in practice? It looks boring. That's the part social media won't show you. It looks like sitting with the discomfort of not knowing who you are for a while. It looks like a Tuesday afternoon where you realize you don't have an answer to, so what do you do? And your stomach drops. It looks like old friends not quite understanding you anymore, and new connections not quite trusting you yet. The threshold is lonely. It's supposed to be. The people who successfully cross tend to share a pattern. They stop trying to bridge the gap between old and new. They stop saying, I'm an accountant who's transitioning into design. That framing keeps one foot in each room, which means you're standing in the doorway indefinitely. Instead, at some point, and the timing feels less like a decision and more like a collapse, they let the old title fall. They grieve it. Even if they hated the job, they grieve the certainty it provided. The structure. The identity shorthand, "I'm an accountant," is a complete sentence that makes strangers nod and move on. "I'm figuring it out" opens a void that most people will do anything to avoid. The grief is functional. Psychologists who study identity transitions describe a process that mirrors the stages of actual bereavement. There's denial. "I can do both, I'll just freelance on the side." Bargaining. "Maybe I can find a version of my current job that feels more meaningful." And eventually, if you stay in the liminal space long enough without retreating, there's an acceptance that has weight to it. The old version of you served a purpose. It got you here. And here is exactly where it stops being useful. What makes manifesting such a loaded word in this context is that it implies addition. You're adding a new career to your life, attracting it, pulling it toward you. The physics of identity work in the opposite direction. You have to subtract first. You have to create a vacuum where the old identity used to be. And that vacuum is what draws the new behaviors, new relationships, and new opportunities into the space. A closet stuffed with old clothes has no room for new ones. You know this. You just haven't applied it to the thing wearing the clothes. The practical implications cut deeper than motivation. If you're journaling about your dream career every morning, and then spending 8 hours reinforcing your current professional identity through every interaction, email, and decision, the journal loses every time. Identity is built through repetition, and whichever version of you gets more repetitions per day wins. The math is brutal. Your dream gets 20 minutes of visualization. Your current identity gets 14 hours of lived reinforcement. That's why vision boards collect dust, which means the actual work of career transition is structural, not mental. You change the inputs, you alter the daily repetitions. You put yourself in rooms where the new identity gets reinforced more often than the old one. You take on a project that requires you to operate as the future version of yourself before you feel ready. The discomfort of that, of performing competence you haven't fully earned yet, is the liminal space doing its work. Every moment of "I have no idea what I'm doing" is a repetition for the new identity. And here's the part that makes people quit right before the shift happens. There's a period, sometimes weeks, sometimes months, where you feel worse, less competent, less certain, less like yourself. Because you are less like yourself. That's the process working. You've vacated the old identity and the new one hasn't solidified yet. You're the caterpillar in the cocoon, and inside that cocoon, the caterpillar doesn't gracefully transform. It dissolves into literal goo. The cellular structure breaks down completely before reorganizing into something with wings. The dissolving part is non-negotiable. Most career advice skips straight to the butterfly. Build your portfolio. Network strategically. Optimize your LinkedIn. All useful after the dissolution. Before it, they're just decorations on a cocoon that hasn't opened yet. You're optimizing a version of yourself that needs to end. So the question worth sitting with is this: which version of you needs to die for the career you want to become possible? Get specific. Give that version a shape. Describe their daily routine, their beliefs about money, their reflexive answer to what do you do. Look at that description with clear eyes and notice how much of your current life is designed to keep that person alive. The career you want is on the other side of a funeral you haven't held yet, and the invitation has been sitting on your desk for longer than you'd like to admit.